They had underestimated her, dismissing her as a simpleton. While they were busy celebrating what they believed was their clever scheme, her husband's marriage to his mistress, they remained blissfully ignorant of the fact that she was in the process of signing the sales contract for the very mansion they were living in, a property valued at $15 million. The truth hit her husband hard when he returned home, his reaction an unrestrained outburst of shock and anger right there at the gate. The reality of having his opulent home sold out from under him was a devastating blow, made all the more poignant by the fact that this was only the opening act of the real wedding gift she had in store for him. As the Los Angeles sunset painted the sky in fiery hues, Laura Vance finally sent the last crucial email for her most important client project of the year. A palpable sense of relief washed over her, easing the tension that had gripped her back for so long. She leaned back in her chair, gently massaging her aching temples. It was already 8 p.m., a testament to the relentless work ethic she had maintained since 8 a.m., fueled only by a quick office nap and a meager snack. The once bustling office was now becoming increasingly deserted, with only a few colleagues remaining, each battling their own deadlines. Laura reached for her phone, her brow furrowing slightly as she noticed the absence of a reply from her husband, Grant. That morning, she had sent him a message of encouragement before his business trip. "Be careful on your business trip to Seattle, darling. Eat well. I'll wait for news from you." Beside the message, 2 gray ticks remained, stubbornly indicating that he hadn't even read it. He must be incredibly busy, she reasoned. Client meetings in Seattle were undoubtedly consuming all of his time. Although it had only been 3 days since he left, the house already felt cavernously empty without him. No longer bothering to collect her belongings sentimentally, she took only what was necessary: her work laptop, all the asset documents she had just retrieved, a few changes of clothes, and her personal items. Her eyes fell on a wedding photo of her and Grant on the desk. Grant was smiling broadly, and Laura smiled happily, innocently, full of love. She removed the photo from the frame and stared at Grant's face. This man wanted me dead. With a swift motion, she tore the photo in half, then again and again, and threw the pieces into the wastebasket, leaving the empty frame on the desk. Laura turned off the study lights, locked the door, and left the house. She walked through the luxurious living room, past the modern kitchen where she used to prepare Grant's favorite meals, not looking back. She got into her car, closed the front gate from the outside, and drove away. The $15 million house was now just a property about to change hands, and she was no longer a betrayed wife. She was a woman fighting for her life. Laura didn't sleep at all that night, spending it in the luxurious but quiet hotel room meditating, searching for strength and wisdom. The life insurance policy lay on the table beside her. Each time she glanced at the blue folder, any remaining doubt or sadness vanished, replaced by steely resolve. This was no longer a matter of divorce. It was a criminal matter. At 8 a.m., her cell phone rang. It was Mr. Reynolds. "Mrs. Vance, I have good news. Mr. Harrison has agreed to your terms. We'll meet at my office at 10 a.m. He'll bring his notary and legal team with him. He wants to close the deal today as you requested." "Yes, counselor. I'll be there at 10 a.m. "Thank you very much," Laura replied, her voice calm and composed. She prepared herself, choosing her best business suit, a fitted black jacket, an impeccable white shirt, and an elegant dark gray scarf, and applying light makeup to conceal the traces of her sleepless night. "Who are you? If you don't leave, I will call the police for disturbing the peace on private property." "It's a lie. This has to be a lie." Grant lost his mind, attempting to climb the fence, but the guard immediately stopped him. Chloe collapsed onto the hot asphalt. Her makeup ran with the sweat and tears streaming down her face. "Honey, is it really sold? Then where are we going to live? You lied to me, honey. You said you were rich. You said I would live here like a queen." "Shut up," Grant shouted, frustrated. Just then, a minivan pulled up behind their taxi. The doors opened. Mrs. Sterling, his sister-in-law, and several of Grant's uncles got out. They arrived with cheerful faces, intending to support Grant and Chloe. They planned to pressure Era into accepting Chloe as a second wife. But what they encountered was a chaotic scene, a disheveled and angry Grant arguing with a security guard, and Chloe crying hysterically on the sidewalk next to an open suitcase. "Grant, what's going on?" Mrs. Sterling yelled as she ran toward him. "Why are you outside? Why is Chloe crying in the street?" Grant turned to his mother, his eyes bloodshot. "Mom, the house has been sold." "What?" Mrs. Sterling screamed. "Sold? Impossible. Who sold it?" "Era. Who else?" Grant wailed. "That woman sold the house behind our backs." Mrs. Sterling's face, which had been triumphant only moments before, turned instantly pale. "Sold the $15 million house? How wasn't it in both your names?" "I don't know, Mom. I don't know." Grant punched the gate pillar with his fist. His hand throbbed, but the pain in his heart was far worse. A mixture of shame, rage, and confusion consumed him. Now they were all out on the street, wealthy people suddenly looking like vagrants. Grant, Chloe, Mrs. Sterling, and all their family members stared blankly at the gate of the luxurious house, now firmly closed to them. They had just lost their biggest asset. Chloe continued to sob. "Your chance ended, Grant, when you cheated on me, when you conspired with your mother, and when you signed that life insurance policy in my name." She then looked at Chloe, who was now crying silently, her body trembling uncontrollably. "And you, Miss Chloe Davies, enjoyed the stolen money, set up a shell company in your name, and became the beneficiary of a $10 million insurance policy. Your pregnancy will not save you from justice." The other two officers advanced. One grabbed Grant's arm, the other Chloe's. "Let go of me." Grant resisted, his fear now transformed into blind rage. He broke free and lunged at Era. "This is all your fault. If I can't have you, no one will." His movement was fast, but the police's was faster. Before Grant could touch her, he was subdued. His arms were twisted behind his back. Mr. Reynolds quickly pulled Era away. "Restrain him," the veteran officer shouted. "Let go of me. I'll kill her." Grant screamed. An officer pulled out handcuffs. Click. Grant's hands were now cuffed behind his back. Era looked at her now helpless ex-husband, her face remaining calm. She said to the officer, "Inspector, please note it down. The death threat in front of these witnesses supports my other complaint about the insurance policy." "Yes, ma'am, noted," the officer said, motioning for Grant to be taken to the car. "Era," Grant continued to shout, his voice as he was dragged to the police car now full of desperation. "I regret it, Era. I swear I love you. Let go of me." "Mom. Mom, help me." Mrs. Sterling watched in shock as her son, her pride, was handcuffed like a common criminal. Thud. Chloe, seeing Grant handcuffed and realizing her own bleak future, finally fainted, her body slumping onto the curb. "Inspector," Grant's sister-in-law cried out, "take her away." "There is medical staff at the station, too," the veteran officer said without compassion. A waiting female officer quickly helped move the unconscious Chloe to the second police car. Despite her demanding career, she always made it a point to cater to Grant's needs, constantly finding herself missing him. She longed for the easy banter and laughter they had shared during their 5 years of marriage. Before tidying her desk and heading home to face an evening of solitude, Laura instinctively opened Instagram on her phone, her fingers scrolling through the endless feed. Amidst news from old acquaintances, furniture ads, and recipe videos, her scrolling came to an abrupt halt at a photo posted by her mother-in-law, Mrs. Sterling. A wave of foreboding washed over Laura, stemming not from a negative premonition but from the sheer audacity of the image. It was a wedding photo. Her husband, Grant, stood tall and handsome in an ivory tuxedo. Beside him, radiating happiness, stood a very familiar face, Chloe Davies, a junior employee from another department. Chloe wore a matching bridal gown and heavy makeup, both holding what appeared to be marriage vow books. The most appalling aspect was the presence of their family, Mrs. Sterling, beaming with pride as she embraced her son, Lara's sister-in-law, and Grant's aunts and uncles, all present, all smiling brightly for the camera, positioned in a space lavishly decorated with fresh flowers. Lara's hands began to tremble uncontrollably. This had to be a mistake. Perhaps it was an old photo, or some kind of themed celebration, but their attire suggested otherwise, unequivocally pointing to a wedding. Then, Lara read the caption Mrs. Sterling had written, a sentence that landed like a stinging slap across her face. "My dear son, may you be happy forever with our Chloe. You finally took the plunge." Lara's world seemed to grind to a halt. The air in the well-conditioned office suddenly felt thick and suffocating. The distant tapping of her colleague's keyboard across the room sounded like a muffled hum. The image she saw in the mirror was not of a wounded Lara, but of a cold, focused negotiator, Director Vance. 5 minutes before 10 a.m., she arrived at Mr. Reynolds' office. Mr. Harrison, a burly man in his 50s, was already waiting, accompanied by 2 lawyers and a notary. The meeting was brief and efficient. "Mrs. Vance, I regret that you have to sell your home so suddenly," Mr. Harrison said in a deep, dignified voice. "But I won't waste your time. I've been interested in a property in that area for quite some time. Mr. Reynolds informed me that you're in a hurry."
"So am I."
"I won't haggle over the price. $15 million US. "I agree. My team reviewed the legal documentation this morning. Everything is clean and in your name. I'll pay the total amount today via immediate wire transfer, provided we sign the purchase agreement before 2 p.m., so I can register the changes immediately." Lara nodded. "Agreed, Mr. Harrison. I appreciate your understanding and efficiency. Let's proceed." For the next 2 hours, the meeting room was filled with the rustling of papers and the scratching of pens. Here is the translation and rewriting of the provided text into American English, with a slightly expanded and clarified style. Legal discussions continued between the attorneys, the air thick with anticipation. Everyone present sat in silence, meticulously reading each clause of the documents. Era remained laser-focused. By 1 p.m., all documents were finalized and ready for signature. Before the notary public, Era signed the purchase agreement. Her hand remained steady, showing no sign of hesitation. As the pen glided across the paper, she felt no sense of loss, only a profound sense of freedom. She had finally rid herself of a great burden, a house filled with painful memories and sinister schemes. 30 minutes later, they were all at a discreet, private banking center. The mysterious Mr. X/F4 /NFTT was still an enigma. "Mr. I don't know, honey. I liked this house. You have to take responsibility. I'm pregnant with your child. I don't want to suffer." "Shut up. Can't you be quiet?" Mrs. Sterling yelled at Chloe. "This is all your fault. If you hadn't gotten pregnant, Grant wouldn't have rushed with you, and Era wouldn't have been so angry." "Wow, now it's my fault? You were the one who supported me the most. You said Era couldn't have children." Chloe retorted, undeterred. In the midst of the chaos, Grant slumped weakly onto the curb. Next to Chloe, he held his head, feeling like it was about to explode. It was over. The house was gone. He had no money. The credit cards were blocked, and he was stuck with a hysterical new wife and a mother who blamed him. He didn't know that this was only the beginning of his nightmare. Hysteria was an understatement to describe the scene that unfolded that afternoon in front of No. 1 Acacia Lane. Mrs. Sterling, who had arrived with a chest full of victory, was now slumped on the hot curb, her face pale and her mouth mumbling incoherently. "It's gone. Everything is gone." The $15 million house. Chloe, for her part, transitioned from pathetic crying to fury, getting up and kicking Grant's suitcase. "Scammer. You said you were rich. You said I would live like a queen. And what is this? We are thrown out of the house. You don't even have a home, honey. You lied to me. Don't you dare shut up." Mrs. Sterling shouted. She suddenly regained her strength, stood up, and pointed at Chloe's face. "This is all your fault, shameless woman. If you hadn't seduced my son, Era wouldn't have been so angry. You brought disgrace." "Why is it my fault?" Chloe shouted back, no longer caring about her image. You were the most excited to marry me to Grant. You said Era couldn't have children. You said I was the ideal daughter-in-law because I was fertile, and now you blame me. You are the same, a gold digger. You insolent woman. Grant, defend me. The doors of the 2 patrol cars closed. The sirens turned on again. They slowly drove away down Acacia Lane, taking a screaming Grant and a passed-out Chloe. Era stood still and let out a long sigh. The main gift had been delivered. Mrs. Sterling crawled on the asphalt with what strength she had left. She looked at Era, with eyes full of hatred. You are a viper. You ruined my son. You ruined our family. You will rot in hell. Era looked at her mother-in-law, her ex-mother-in-law, for the last time. You ruined your son yourself when you supported his greed, when you justified his betrayal, when you celebrated with him over my pain. You reap what you sow. Era turned and put her sunglasses back on. She got into her luxury car, and Mr. Reynolds followed her. The car drove away in silence, leaving behind Mrs. Sterling screaming on the hot curb, and the rest of the family plunged into shame and despair. The game was over. Era had won. The legal process was swift and unforgiving. The evidence presented by Era was irrefutable. The documents prepared by Mr. Reynolds and his firm were so meticulously assembled that they clearly showed the digital trail and the flow of funds. The $515,000 embezzlement was proven beyond a doubt. Grant tried to shift responsibility, blaming Chloe and claiming he had been framed. He alleged Chloe seduced him and managed the finances of Sun & Design Consulting LLC, but his claims were refuted by his signature on all the fake invoices and fund requests. Chloe, for her part, tried to use her pregnancy to gain sympathy. She claimed to be a victim, coerced by Grant to sign documents she didn't understand. But the Sun & Design Consulting LLC bank account, containing hundreds of thousands of dollars, was in her name, and she was proven to have withdrawn money from that account for luxury shopping. After a tedious trial, the judge delivered his verdict. Justice was served. Grant was found guilty as the principal perpetrator of misappropriation and fraud. Finally took the plunge. The word finally suggested a long, hidden history, implying that this was not a spur-of-the-moment decision, but something that had been meticulously planned for a long time. With trembling fingers, Laura zoomed in on the photo, confirming her worst fears. It was indeed Grant, her husband, the man she had lovingly driven to the airport 3 days prior, believing he was embarking on a business trip to Seattle. The man to whom she had sent an affectionate message that very morning. She saw Grant smile in the photo, a genuine, uninhibited smile, a smile she hadn't witnessed in a long time when he was with her. Then, Laura noticed the comments, each one twisting the knife deeper into her heart. Congrats, Grant. Chloe is finally part of the family, her sister-in-law wrote. Oh, Mrs. Sterling, you finally have a new daughter-in-law who will give you grandchildren. Congratulations, an aunt chimed in. Congrats on the wedding, bro. Let's hear some baby news soon, a cousin added. They all knew. Her husband's entire family was in on it. They had all attended the wedding, showered their blessings, and participated in this elaborate charade. A wave of nausea washed over Laura. While she was working tirelessly to pay the mortgage on their luxurious bare home, to make installments on Grant's extravagant sports car, and even to provide Mrs. Sterling with a monthly allowance, they were all secretly plotting her husband's second wedding behind her back. A clandestine wedding. Of course, Grant would never have dared to broach the subject of divorce or seek her permission to remarry, acutely aware that the majority of their assets were legally in Lara's name. The lavish house in the Barren neighborhood, valued at $15 million, had been purchased by Laura using a substantial bonus she received from her company. Harrison's team smoothly executed the $15 million transfer. Era provided the details of a new account that Mr. Reynolds had created specifically that morning, an account entirely unknown to Grant. At 1:45 p.m., her cell phone buzzed with a notification, a message from the bank confirming the successful transaction. $15 million had been deposited into her account. She showed the notification to Mr. Reynolds and Mr. Harrison, who smiled with satisfaction. A pleasure doing business with you, Mrs. Vance, Mr. Harrison said. My team will collect the keys to the house this afternoon, as agreed. Of course, she replied, assuring him that she had already removed all of her personal belongings. She had no concern for anything else that remained. After Mr. Harrison and his team departed, Era did not immediately leave the bank. Instead, she sat down with the private banking center's manager, assisted by Mr. Reynolds. Now, I need to take care of a few more matters, she told the manager. First, she opened her mobile banking app and logged into their joint account, the account she typically funded at the beginning of each month for household expenses, bills, and Grant's allowance. There was approximately $140,000 remaining. Era tapped the transfer button, moving every last cent of that $140,000 into her newly established account. The joint account was now officially empty, displaying a balance of $0. Second, she turned her attention back to the manager. I am the primary cardholder, she stated. There are 2 supplementary cards under my account, both issued in the name of Mr. Grant Sterling. Please cancel both supplementary cards permanently, effective immediately. May I inquire as to the reason, ma'am? The manager asked politely. I lost the cards and am concerned about potential misuse, Era replied curtly. The manager nodded understandingly.
Understood, ma'am.
I will process that right away. 5 minutes later, he confirmed, Done, ma'am. Chloe pulled at Grant's sleeve, but Grant didn't react. He was paralyzed, staring at the closed gate. His mind raced at 1,000 miles an hour. Era had sold the house. It was a fact.
He couldn't get in.
The guard and the assistant looked very serious. He had to leave. How embarrassing. He saw some neighbors slowing down their cars as they passed, the passengers staring curiously. It was humiliating. He, once known as a successful young executive, was now out on the street like a vagrant, surrounded by a hysterical new wife and an angry mother. Money. He needed money. He had to take them to a hotel or to Chloe's apartment. Yes, the apartment. At least there was a place to rest. But to get there, he needed money. He had to call a taxi. Grant checked his pockets. His wallet was nearly empty, with only a few $50 bills left. The rest of the cash he had taken out before his honeymoon was barely enough for a taxi, let alone a hotel. The credit cards were blocked. That meant Era had already taken action. But there was still the joint account, the account funded for household expenses. There was $140,000 left there. He remembered clearly that Era wouldn't be stupid enough to drain the joint account. It was joint money. With somewhat shaky hands, Grant pulled out his cell phone. He ignored Chloe and Mrs. Sterling, who continued to yell at each other. He opened the mobile banking app and looked for the joint account icon. He entered the password, his heart pounding fiercely. The application opened. He pressed the balance inquiry menu. A number appeared on the screen, a number that made him feel nauseous. Available balance, $0. Completely empty. Down to 0.
No, impossible, Grant mumbled.
He hit the refresh button, but the result was the same. He closed the app and logged in again. Still the same, 0. Then he remembered that Era had blocked his number after sending him the message about the rejected card. This wasn't a system error. It was intentional. He was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison. The death threat shouted in front of the police and the $10 million life insurance policy in Era's name were aggravating factors. The judge deemed him a dangerous person with premeditated malice. Chloe was also found guilty. Her role as an accomplice who enjoyed the benefits of the crime was proven. She was sentenced to 3 years in prison. Her pregnancy did not exempt her. It only ensured that she would give birth in prison medical facilities. But the karma didn't stop there. Mrs. Sterling suffered the most. Her only son, her pride, was now an inmate. She lost her main source of income. Relatives who had previously flattered her now avoided her, ashamed and unwilling to be associated with the family's disgrace. As rumors about the case spread through the neighborhood, Mrs. Sterling did not dare leave her home. To pay the exorbitant lawyer's fees for Grant, who ultimately lost the case, she was forced to sell her own house. In desperate need of cash, she sold it for far less than it was worth. Within a year, Mrs. Sterling was ruined. She was forced to move to a rented room in a dingy alley, where she lived alone, consumed by regret and hatred. Chloe gave birth to a son in the prison hospital. Following standard procedure, the baby could only stay with her briefly before being handed over to social services, as even Chloe's family refused to care for him. They were ashamed and had erased Chloe's name from their family records. Chloe's dream of a life of wealth and luxury ended behind bars, separated from her child and penniless. In jail, Grant became irritable and taciturn, his attractive face replaced by an empty stare. He regretted not only betraying Era, but also being so stupid, careless, and ultimately getting caught. Era officially divorced Grant while he was under investigation. The court readily granted her petition, given the evidence of adultery and criminal activity. Although Grant had insisted on having his name on the deed as well, Laura, instilled with financial prudence by her father, had firmly insisted on keeping it solely in her name. Grant had reluctantly conceded, on the condition that the latest luxury sports car be registered in his name, a condition Laura had fulfilled without hesitation. Now, her generosity seemed like naive foolishness. Her love seemed utterly wasted. She had been betrayed not only by her husband, but also by the entire family she had always respected and treated with kindness. The pain was excruciating, yet strangely, no tears came. All that remained was a glacial coldness, fueled by sheer, unadulterated rage. Laura closed the Instagram app. She didn't need further confirmation. The photo and the comments were damning enough. Taking a deep breath to steady her trembling hands, she glanced at her computer screen, still displaying the sent items folder. Project completed. The client was satisfied. Her career was flourishing, but her personal life lay in ruins. She refused to let this break her. She wouldn't succumb to being the heartbroken woman who retreated into a corner to weep. She had worked too hard to let herself fall apart like this. They had all condoned Grant's actions. They had all celebrated her betrayal. Laura stood up, a newfound determination hardening her gaze. She would exact her revenge on them, all of them. Without waiting for Grant's return from Seattle, she would act, and she would act now. With deliberate, almost mechanical movements, Laura gathered her purse, laptop, notepad, and wallet. The last remaining colleague, a young woman named Skylar, noticed her and asked, "Boss, are you okay? You look terrible." Laura turned, attempting a weak smile but failing to pull it off convincingly.
I'm fine, Skylar.
Just a little tired. I'm heading out. She left the office, her steps purposeful and resolute. As the elevator descended to the basement parking, her mind raced. The 2 cards in Mr. Grant Sterling's name are no longer active. Perfect, Era said, feeling a wave of relief. The main flow of money had been severed. The house was sold, and the money was safely secured in a new account. She returned to her hotel room that afternoon. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, she felt she could truly breathe. She ordered a late lunch from room service, savoring each bite of the delicious meal. Later, she sat on the sofa, gazing at the sprawling Los Angeles skyline from her high-floor window. Her plan had worked at least the first phase. Then her cell phone vibrated. A text message from Grant. His profile picture was still one of them together, a cruel irony. The first message read, "Honey, where are you? I called home, and you didn't answer." Era stared at the message, knowing he had claimed to be on a business trip to Seattle.
Such an obvious lie.
A few seconds later, a second message arrived. "Honey, how strange. I tried to buy you a bag at the airport, but the card was rejected. There's still plenty of limit. Is there a problem with the bank?" Buying her a new bag? Era let out a small, cold, humorless laugh. She knew that lie all too well. At most, he was buying a bag for Chloe. Era deliberately left the messages unread for 10 minutes to make him sweat. Grant wrote again. "Honey, did you read it? Why aren't you answering?" Seriously, the card was rejected. It was so embarrassing. Finally, she replied, her fingers dancing across the screen. "Oh, yes. Perhaps the limit ran out, honey." Grant's response was immediate. "It can't be. You just paid it off. Check it, please. I need it." Era smiled, typing her last message to him. Come home soon, honey. I've prepared a big surprise for you. A surprise for you and for Chloe. She sent the message without waiting for a reply, immediately blocking Grant's number, along with Mrs. Sterling's and all the relatives she knew. Era had drained the account. A cold sweat began to form on Grant's forehead. Although it was very hot, he quickly switched to another banking application, his personal payroll account, where he received his director's salary. He opened it. Balance: $250. Only. With a mere $250 remaining, Grant was utterly broke. His paycheck had arrived just last week, but he'd splurged on a lavish trip to Cabo before his corporate card was declined. He'd assumed he could use it without issue, as usual. Now, he had no house and no money. Honey, Chloe said, shaking him gently, let's go to my apartment. The apartment you bought me. I don't want to be here. The apartment. The realization hit Grant like a wave. Oh God, the apartment. He remembered buying a small studio about 6 months ago, but it was financed with installments and a substantial down payment. A sudden wave of fear washed over him as he couldn't recall precisely where that money had come from. He routinely diverted funds from the company, skimming from vendors. He was reasonably sure Era was none the wiser. Yes, let's go to the apartment, Grant said, his voice hoarse. He needed to defuse the situation and hail a taxi. He opened the ride-sharing app, but just as he was about to tap the call button, a motorcycle pulled up in front of him. A delivery driver in a green jacket dismounted, carrying a large, meticulously wrapped box. It was covered in silver metallic foil, adorned with a wide, elegant black satin ribbon. Excuse me, the delivery driver said, reading the label on the box. A package for Mr. Grant Sterling and Miss Chloe Davies? Grant, Chloe, and Mrs. Sterling all turned simultaneously, a stunned silence falling over them. Miss Chloe Davies? The driver repeated. Yes, that's me. Chloe replied hesitantly, stepping forward. Yes, correct. Mr. Grant Sterling and Miss Chloe Davies. The address is here, Acacia Lane No. 1. Please sign here. With the $15 million from the house sale, plus all her other personal assets, Era embarked on a new life. She no longer wanted to be associated with the construction company that reminded her of the betrayal. She sold Vance Associates' design build to Mr. Miller and other investors. Era decided to use her power for something greater. 2 years later, she stood on stage in the ballroom of a luxurious hotel in Los Angeles. She was elegant and radiant, a sky blue scarf perfectly complementing her outfit. She no longer appeared cold. Her eyes shone with warmth and confidence. She was speaking to hundreds of guests at the official launch of the Era Vance Light Foundation. Betrayal is poison, she said, her voice calm and resonant. It can kill us inside, but it can also be an antidote if we choose not to die. It can force us to see our own worth. She paused, taking in the audience before her. Today, I am not here as a victim. I am here as a survivor who chose to transform that poison into strength. Thunderous applause erupted. The Era Vance Light Foundation was a non-profit organization she had founded, financed entirely with her personal wealth. Its mission was to provide legal support, protection, and financial independence training to women who were victims of domestic violence and financial fraud. After the event, her former colleague, Skylar, who had become her personal assistant, approached her with a tablet. Ma'am, the event was a huge success. Many sponsors have signed up immediately. Oh, and there was a small piece of news earlier. What news? Era asked, accepting a cup of hot tea. Mrs. Sterling has been evicted for non-payment of rent. I heard she is now living with distant relatives, treated as a servant. Skylar reported dryly. And about Miss Davies, her request for parole has been rejected by the judge. He considered that she still shows no signs of remorse. Era was silent for a moment, looking out the window as the Los Angeles sun began to set. Her thoughts were not consumed by her broken heart, but by the actions she needed to take. The same logical prowess she used to solve complex client issues was now focused on rescuing herself. Settling into her car in the underground garage, she didn't start the engine immediately, choosing to sit in silence for a moment, gathering her thoughts. She needed one more confirmation, not through a photo, but through a voice. She needed to hear firsthand how they would react to her, to understand the depth of their deception. Her hand searched for Mrs. Sterling's contact. She pressed the call button. The phone rang 3 times, and then she heard Mrs. Sterling's cheerful, triumphant voice. "Well, what's up at this hour? Working late again?" Lara's voice was flat, cold, devoid of emotion. "Yes, ma'am. Where are you now? It sounds quite loud." A soft laugh echoed from the other end of the line, a laugh that Lara had once considered affectionate, but now sounded like a cruel mockery. "Oh, this? We're having a family gathering. Is there something to celebrate at home?" "A celebration?" Lara repeated, the word dripping with icy contempt. "Grant and Chloe's wedding." A moment of stunned silence filled the line. Lara could almost picture Mrs. Sterling's surprise at her discovering their secrets so quickly. But soon, her mother-in-law's tone shifted, the pretense of lies dissolving, replaced by a cynical, contemptuous sneer. "Wow, you saw our Instagram? Well, that's probably for the best. I assumed you were so preoccupied with your career that you didn't have time for social media. This saves me from having to offer any explanations." A tightness constricted Lara's chest. "So it was true." "Ma'am, why? How could you all do this behind my back?" "Do this to you?" Mrs. Sterling laughed again, this time louder and more aggressively. "You're the one who did this to us. Lara Vance, what have you given my son in 5 years of marriage? You can't even have children." There would be no more communication, only action. Phase 2 would begin tomorrow, taking control of company assets and preparing evidence of the suspected fund embezzlement. The game had only just begun. The next day, Friday morning, Era woke up in her hotel room with a clear and focused mind. She no longer felt like a victim, but like a strategist meticulously planning a war. After meditating at dawn and enjoying a light breakfast, she dressed carefully. Today, she didn't wear the usual jacket she used to meet clients. She chose something more comfortable, but still professional. She had to go to her subsidiary office, the office where Grant worked, an office many people were unaware she even owned. That company, a design and construction firm called Vance and Associates Design Build, or VAB, she had intentionally founded 3 years prior. She placed Grant as the director of operations, granting him a high salary and significant authority. It had been her mistake. She wanted her husband to feel proud and successful, not to feel overshadowed by her own achievements. She had given Grant a stage, but he had used it to stab her in the back. Era intentionally did not list herself as the CEO of the company. Her name appeared in the commercial registry as the majority shareholder, holding 90% of the shares, but the person she appointed as CEO was Mr. Miller, a trusted and long-time associate. Mr. Miller handled the major administrative tasks, while Grant managed the daily operations. And the person responsible for the finances was Mr. Chin, a veteran accountant and 100% loyal to Era. Era decided against calling Mr. Chin, instead opting to show up in person. Surprise was a key element of her plan. She arrived at the lobby of the modern office building at 9 a.m. The young receptionist looked up at her. "Good morning. How can I assist you? Do you have an appointment with someone?" "I've come to see Mr. Chin. Please tell him it's Era." The delivery driver presented her with his mobile device, and Grant signed, practically paralyzed with apprehension. The delivery driver then handed him the surprisingly heavy box and promptly left. Now, the 3 of them, along with the rest of the family, stood on the curb, staring at the luxurious gift box. "Whose is it?" Grant's sister-in-law asked, breaking her silence. Chloe spotted a small card tied to the ribbon. She took it, noticing the very elegant calligraphy. It was Era's handwriting. "What does it say?" Mrs. Sterling asked suspiciously. "It won't be garbage or a bomb, will it?" "I don't think so, Mom," Grant said, though a knot of unease tightened in his stomach. Chloe read the card aloud, her voice trembling slightly. "Congratulations on your wedding. Your first wedding gift. Open it. A gift from Era." After everything that had transpired, this felt profoundly wrong. "Maybe it's an apology," Chloe blurted out, a flicker of hope in her eyes. Maybe there's jewelry or a check. She realized she made a mistake selling the house and is giving us compensation. Open it, Mrs. Sterling ordered, her greed outweighing her suspicion. With hands still shaking, Grant placed the box on the suitcase, carefully untied the black satin ribbon, and tore away the expensive silver wrapping paper. Inside was a very sturdy, unbranded black box, just a simple, elegant black box. Grant's heart pounded in his chest. He could feel the ominous calm before the storm. He lifted the lid. Inside, there was no jewelry, no stacks of bills, no checks, nothing that Chloe anticipated. Instead, there was soft black satin fabric, and nestled on top of it were two thick, officially sealed white envelopes. The paper was rigid and expensive, and the logo of Grant's company, the design and construction firm, was printed in the upper left corner. One envelope was addressed to Mr. Grant Sterling, the other to Miss Chloe Davies. Grant's breath hitched. This was not a gift. She felt no satisfaction or pity, just a neutral sense of closure. The justice of the universe had followed its own course. Everyone had reaped what they had sown. Understood, Era finally said, turning away from the window and smiling at Skylar. Don't worry about that news. We still have a lot of work to do. Schedule a meeting with the legal team. We have a new client who needs our help. Era left the ballroom surrounded by people who admired her. She had lost a traitorous husband, but she had found herself. She was free, wealthy, and most importantly, she had transformed her scars into a light for others. That was the best karma and the most satisfying ending of all. You haven't been able to give this family a grandchild. Grant is the only son of our house. He needs offspring to carry on the lineage. The words, "You can't even have children," cut like a sharpened blade. They had never undergone any medical tests. Grant had always dodged the idea with excuses about being too busy. The blame had been unfairly placed upon her, concealing a secret wedding that was now out in the open. "Why didn't you just talk to me?" Laura asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Talk to you for what? You never would have allowed it. You're a selfish career woman who values your work more than your husband. Look at Chloe. She's good wife material, and most importantly, she's fertile. She's already 2 months pregnant with Grant's baby. I told my son it was better to marry them than to let them continue living in sin. It's the right thing to do, isn't it? As an educated woman, you should understand and support your husband's decision." 2 months pregnant, that meant this affair had been ongoing for months, perhaps even years. Grant's frequent business trips had been nothing but elaborate lies, and her mother-in-law not only knew about it but had orchestrated the entire scheme. "So you planned everything?" Laura asked, almost in a whisper. "Of course," Mrs. Sterling replied, her voice filled with unadulterated pride. "I found Chloe for Grant, a woman who understands her duties as a wife, who serves her husband, and who can give him children. Not a woman like you, who only knows how to make money. Just give up, Laura. Accept your fate. Don't stand in the way of my son's happiness. If you accept it meekly, you will be blessed." Click. Mrs. Sterling ended the call. Laura stared at the darkened screen of her cell phone. Silence. Still no tears. Her anger had surpassed the threshold of pain. She felt like an utter fool. All this time, she had respected Mrs. "Excuse me, Mrs. Does Vance have an appointment?" Era smiled slightly. "Just tell him it's a Vance and it's urgent. He'll understand." The receptionist, looking doubtful, made the call. Moments later, her eyes widened. Yes, Mr. Chin. You can go straight up to the 5th floor. Mr. Chin will be waiting for you by the elevator." And indeed, when the elevator doors opened on the 5th floor, Mr. Chin was already there, looking pale and visibly nervous. He was a meticulous man in his late 40s. "Mrs. Vance, what are you doing here? Has something happened?" "Something very serious has happened, Mr. Chin, and I need your help," Era said, walking past him. "Close your office door now." Inside the financial director's office, Era sat across from Mr. Chin, wasting no time. "Mr. Chin, excuse the unexpected visit. I need you to pull out Mr. Grant Sterling's financial data for the last 6 months. all of his expenses, all of his fund requests, and all the invoices he has approved right now. Mr. Chen's face tightened further. He knew this was no ordinary visit. Yes, ma'am. Of course. He immediately turned to his computer, his fingers moving quickly across the keyboard. Is there any specific type of expense you are looking for? All of them, from travel expenses to client entertainment, including all payments to new vendors. Mr. Chen began opening the files one by one. Here it is, ma'am. Mr. Sterling has had quite a few trips. The trip to Seattle 3 days ago, plane tickets, 5-star hotel, client representation expenses. One moment. Era interrupted. The trip to Seattle? I want to see it in detail. Mr. Chen opened the attachments. Indeed, there were plane tickets and hotel invoices, all paid for by the company. Here's the report, ma'am, Mr. Chen said. Era took out her cell phone, opened her text message history with Grant, and showed the screen to Mr. Chen. Read this, please. Mr. It was an official letter. They're just letters, Chloe exclaimed, disappointed. She immediately snatched the envelope bearing her name. What is this? Grant grabbed his envelope, his hands stiff and clumsy. He could feel the gaze of Mrs. Sterling and the entire family bearing down on him. He sharply broke the seal and pulled out the folded paper inside. It was written on official company letterhead, bearing Mr. Miller's signature. Grant scanned the letter, his eyes darting across the lines. Subject: Notice of disciplinary termination. Attention Grant Sterling, Director of Operations. Following the results of an internal audit and in consideration of a serious violation of ethics and immoral conduct that damages the company's honor. Grant felt his heart sink. With the issue date of this notification, the company officially notifies the termination of the employment relationship with Mr. Grant Sterling by disciplinary dismissal. He is not entitled to severance pay, final settlement, or any company benefits. All company assets, including the company vehicle, must be returned within 24 hours. Fired. The voice wasn't Grant's. It was Chloe's sharp cry. She had also finished reading her letter. The content was similar: disciplinary dismissal for violation of company ethics, an inappropriate relationship with a superior, and involvement in a conspiracy that harmed the company. I've been fired, honey. I've been fired, Chloe repeated, shaking Grant. The letter slipped from her grasp and fluttered to the asphalt. Grant was speechless. He had been fired from the company he thought he ran. How, Mr. Miller? What is this dismissal? Mrs. Sterling wailed, snatching the letter from Grant's hand and reading it quickly. Her eyes widened in disbelief. Disciplinary dismissal?
How?
Grant, you're the director there. You're important. Grant didn't answer. He stared blankly into the black box. His eyes caught something else. Sterling, as if she were her own mother, sending her money every month without question and showering her with expensive gifts on her birthday, only to be repaid with such treachery. She was nothing more than a money-making machine who couldn't produce children in their eyes. Fine, Laura told herself. You all supported him. You celebrated over my pain. Her mind spun rapidly. The assets, that was what they were truly after. They assumed Laura would quietly accept the situation and continue to fund their extravagant lifestyles. They thought that as a dutiful wife, she would simply obey. They were tragically mistaken. Laura shifted her focus, scrolling through her contacts until she found her personal attorney, Mr. Reynolds, a resolute and highly competent middle-aged man who handled all the legal paperwork for her assets and businesses. Mr. Reynolds, I apologize for calling at this hour. This is Mrs. Vance. Is something wrong? Mr. Reynolds' voice was calm and professional. I need your immediate assistance tonight, Laura said, her voice firm and unwavering. I want to sell my house, the house on Acacia Lane, number 1, the house where I currently live. A gasp of surprise escaped Mr. Reynolds' lips on the other end of the line. Mrs. Vance, are you referring to the $15 million mansion? Why such a sudden decision? Is there a problem? There is a very urgent problem. I need to sell it tonight. I don't care if the price drops slightly. The important thing is that it's sold tonight, or at the latest, tomorrow morning. The money must be deposited into a new personal account of mine. Please create a new account that is not linked to any joint accounts. Mr. Reynolds was a seasoned professional. He refrained from probing into his client's personal affairs, recognizing the urgency in Lara's voice. Coincidentally, Mrs. Vance, one of my clients, a real estate investor named Mr. Harrison, has been pursuing a property in that area for quite some time. Chin read Grant's message from a month ago. Honey, send me $2,000. I have an important trip to Seattle, and the company budget is tight. I think I'll have to pay for it first. She then showed him the proof of the $2,000 transfer from her personal account to Grant's. I made the transfer, she said coldly, and the company also paid for it. What is this, Mr. Chin? Mr. Chin swallowed hard. This is double billing embezzlement. Ma'am, this is just the beginning, Era said. Keep looking for vendors, new vendors with large, irregular payments. Mr. Chin scrolled across the screen and stopped at a name. Here it is, ma'am. Sunshine Consulting LLC. Payments for design consulting services. The strange thing is, this has only happened in the last 6 months, but the payments are very large. Every month, Mr. Sterling requested 2 transfers, each between $25,000 and $40,000. The total, my goodness, the total is already $450,000. Ma'am, who is the owner of that company? And what about the work reports? Is there a contract? Mr. Chin looked confused. That's the problem, ma'am. Mr. Sterling always said it was a special vendor and that he managed the contract directly. Payments were always requested suddenly, and after he signed the approval, he asked me to make the transfer immediately. He said it was for a secret project. A secret project? Era scoffed. She immediately called her lawyer, Mr. Reynolds. Counselor, I need you to verify a company name, Sunshine Consulting LLC. I'll send you the tax registration number. I need the owner's name immediately. While waiting for Mr. Reynolds' call, she instructed Mr. Chin, look more at entertainment expenses, client entertainment. Mr. Chin opened Grant's corporate card data. The charges had skyrocketed. Luxury restaurants, designer boutiques, and a jewelry store. Here it is, ma'am. Purchase of a diamond necklace, $5,000. The description says, gift for client X's wife. Beneath the satin fabric holding the 2 envelopes was another card, a small ivory card, smaller than the greeting card before. He reached out a trembling hand and picked it up. Era's calligraphy, sharp, determined, and cold. He read it silently first. Oh, and by the way, Grant, that company is mine. I own 90% of the shares. Mr. Miller was just following my orders. You just got fired from my property. Grant staggered, leaning against the cold pillar of the gate, the pillar of a house that was no longer his. The company was 90% hers. He knew she had invested, knew she had founded it, but she had never interfered. Era had given him free rein. He had foolishly assumed she was a passive investor, that the company was his to control. He was terribly wrong. He was just an employee who had just been fired. Grant, what does this mean? Mrs. Sterling clearly saw the change in Grant's expression. Grant could no longer contain himself. He read the sentence on the card aloud, his voice trembling with a mixture of rage and immense fear. Oh, and by the way, Grant, that company is mine. I own 90% of the shares. You just got fired from my property. For 5 seconds, complete silence reigned on that curb. Even Chloe stopped crying. Then, Grant continued reading the last line of the card. But don't worry, the real main gift hasn't arrived yet. Thud. That was the sound of Mrs. Sterling's body hitting the sidewalk. She had fainted, her eyes closed, her face as pale as a corpse. The sister-in-law and uncles panicked. Mom, wake up. They tried to revive her by patting her cheeks. Chloe didn't care about her mother-in-law. She looked at Grant with terrified eyes. It's Era's. The company is Era's. So, then your salary, your car, everything came from her? Grant didn't respond. He crumpled the card in his hand. You never had anything. Chloe yelled again, her voice now cracking. You were poor, jobless, homeless. You're a scammer. He made an offer a while back, but you turned it down. I'm fairly certain he's still interested. I'll contact him immediately. He's someone who prefers quick transactions. All the necessary documents are securely stored in my office, entirely in your name, of course. Perfect, Laura said. Please handle all the procedures. If my signature is required, I'll come to your office right now. And one more thing, counselor. Yes, tell me. Prepare the divorce papers for my husband, Grant Sterling, with the toughest possible terms, but do not file them yet. Wait for my instructions. Understood, Mrs. Vance. I'll prepare everything. Please drive carefully. Laura hung up. She started the car, but instead of returning to the $15 million house, she headed in the opposite direction. It was no longer her home. It was merely an asset to be liquidated. She would spend the night in a hotel, awaiting the funds to be deposited, meticulously plotting her next move. She pressed down on the accelerator, her car speeding through the LA traffic. In her mind, a cold and calculated plan for revenge began to take shape. If they wanted a party, she would give them a wedding gift they would never forget. That night, Laura didn't go home. She drove straight to a 5-star hotel not far from Mr. Reynolds' office, booked a suite for 3 days using her personal credit card, and checked in using her maiden name. After dropping off her purse, she went directly to Mr. Reynolds' office, who had agreed to meet with her that night. The middle-aged man looked at her with worried, but professional eyes. He didn't ask much, simply presenting her with the initial documents. This is a power of sale, Mrs. Vance. With this, I can proceed with negotiations tomorrow morning with Mr. Harrison, Mr. Reynolds explained, referring to the investor he had mentioned on the phone. I've already contacted him. He's very interested and has agreed to meet tomorrow morning. He doesn't like to waste time. Era laughed, a very bitter laugh. She remembered that 3 months ago, Grant came home complaining about how difficult it was to win over Client X. Era never received a diamond necklace. Era's cell phone rang. It was Mr. Reynolds. I found the data, Mrs. Vance. Sunshine Consulting LLC was registered 3 months ago. The address is an empty lot. It appears to be a shell company address, and the owner and director is Chloe Davies. Chloe, Era whispered. Correct, ma'am. Chloe Davies. The company's bank account is also in her name. Era hung up and looked at Mr. Chin. Mr. Chin, that $450,000 went to my husband's mistress's personal account. Mr. Chin was horrified, his face flushed with anger. He felt betrayed. The audacity. He completely fooled me. You are not the only one. Me too, Era said. Now, let's do the math. $450,000 for Chloe. Double billing for trips. Let's estimate $60,000 over 6 months. Personal purchases with a corporate card, $5,000. The total is over $515,000. That's outright company fund embezzlement. Era stood up. Mr. Chen, print all of this evidence, proof of transfers, fake invoices from Sunshine Consulting LLC, copies of corporate card statements, and the company registration data in Chloe Davies' name. I want a complete, thick dossier. Yes, ma'am. I will prepare it immediately, Mr. Chen said, his movements agile. One more thing, Era added. Does Miss Chloe Davies work here? Mr. Chen nodded. Yes, ma'am. She's in the marketing department. She joined 6 months ago. She was personally hired by Mr. Sterling. It fits perfectly, Era said. Prepare termination letters for Mr. Grant Sterling and Miss Chloe Davies. Right now. The reason for termination will be disciplinary dismissal for company fund embezzlement and severe violation of company ethics. Understood, Mrs. Vance. You will have them on your desk before lunchtime. An hour later, Era left the office. Chloe pulled at her hair like a madwoman, sobbing uncontrollably. She had bet everything on marrying this man. She was pregnant, and now she knew he was penniless. She was fired, and she wouldn't receive compensation. She was trapped. The main gift hasn't arrived yet, Grant whispered to himself. The phrase echoed in his head. He saw his mother passed out on the asphalt, his hysterical new wife, and the rest of his family looking at him with confusion and fear. The $15 million house was gone. The $140,000 from the joint account was gone. The credit cards were blocked. The job with a salary of hundreds of thousands a year was gone. The sports car would be reclaimed. He had been fired for disciplinary reasons, and the main gift had not yet arrived. A pure and cold terror ran down Grant's spine. What else was left? What could possibly be worse than this? The chaos on the sidewalk reached its peak. Mrs. Sterling, who had regained consciousness and was slumped on the hot curb, was pale and mumbling incoherently. It's gone. Everything is gone. The $15 million house. Chloe, for her part, had transitioned from hysterical crying to a desperate wail. Her once perfectly styled hair was now a mess, and her completely smudged makeup revealed a swollen face, contorted with hatred. She repeatedly hit Grant's chest. Scammer.
Scammer.
You said you would give me a good life. You said you would make me a lady. It turns out you're poor. You have nothing. I'm pregnant, Grant. What are we going to do now? Grant himself was like a statue, his mind blank. The words on the small card, "That company is mine, and the main gift hasn't arrived yet," repeated in his head like a broken record. He had lost everything in a matter of hours. House, money, job, car, pride. He had miscalculated. He had underestimated Era. He thought she was a submissive, foolish, docile woman who would accept her fate in silence. He never imagined she was the lioness quietly controlling his entire life. Good, Laura said curtly, her voice filled with determination. She signed the documents, without hesitation. Please process it as quickly as possible, counselor. I want the transaction to close tomorrow. I'll do everything possible, ma'am. Tomorrow morning, I'll also have a new bank account ready in your name, completely separate from any other accounts. The draft of the divorce petition is being prepared by my team. Laura nodded. Thank you, counselor. I need to stop by the house for a moment. There are some important documents I must retrieve myself. Would you like me to accompany you, or send someone? Mr. Reynolds offered. Laura shook her head. That won't be necessary. I can handle it alone. The house is still in my name. Legally, I have every right. After leaving the attorney's office, Laura drove to the house on Acacia Lane. The imposing $15 million mansion stood tall under the moonlight, beautiful but cold and foreign. This would be her last visit. She parked her car in the garage next to Grant's luxury sports car, the one she had bought for him, Laura thought with a cynical smile. She used her spare key to enter. The house was dark and silent. The cleaning service had already left in the afternoon. Laura didn't turn on the main lights. Using the light from her cell phone, she went straight to the study. This room was her domain, the place where she often worked late, earning the money that Grant and his family so readily enjoyed. Behind a large abstract painting was a wall safe. Grant knew the safe was there, but he didn't know the combination. He assumed it was their wedding anniversary. Laura had changed it 6 months earlier, after Grant joked about wanting to borrow the house deed as collateral for a loan for a new business venture, a venture that never materialized. Laura entered the new combination, her late father's birthday. The safe clicked open softly. Inside, everything was meticulously organized, the fruits of her hard work. She did not return to the hotel, but went straight to Mr. Reynolds' office. In her hands, she carried the thick dossier containing all the evidence of the embezzlement. She handed it to the lawyer. Here it is, she said. The wrapping for the wedding gift is ready. This is criminal evidence. I don't want a simple divorce. I want them prosecuted. Mr. Reynolds took the dossier and quickly skimmed through it. His eyes widened. This is incredible, Mrs. Vance. This is not a simple civil case. This is a clear criminal case. Misappropriation. The penalties are severe. I know, Era said. Now, we just have to wait for the mouse to come home. That night, Era sent a brief message to the house's new owner, Mr. Harrison. Mr. Harrison, good evening. For your information, an unwanted guest is likely to show up at the house tomorrow. He does not know the house has been sold. Please instruct security staff not to let him in. He no longer has any rights. Mr. Harrison replied quickly, I'll take care of it. Mrs. Vance, don't worry. Era put down her cell phone. She had sold the house, secured the $15 million, blocked the credit cards, and compiled evidence of a crime worth over $500,000. She also had a $10 million life insurance policy as proof of attempted murder. The gift was carefully wrapped. Now she just had to wait for Grant and Chloe to come pick it up. Saturday noon. The weather in Los Angeles was scorching. A taxi pulled up right in front of the imposing gate on Acacia Lane. The back door opened, and Grant got out first, his brow furrowed in a deep frown. He slammed the taxi door shut. Chloe emerged with difficulty, dragging a large suitcase and complaining, "Honey, it's so hot. Why didn't the driver come pick us up? You said you had a personal driver." Chloe complained. Her expensive clothes looked wrinkled and disheveled. "What kind of honeymoon is this? We come back and are greeted by this suffocating heat." "Shut up," Grant snapped. "My head hurts." "The main gift hasn't arrived yet," he whispered. "What else could it be? What could be worse than being completely ruined in front of his whole family?" As if answering his question, the sound of a siren echoed in the distance. It wasn't an ambulance for Mrs. Sterling. The sound was different. 2 police patrol cars, blue and white, turned onto Acacia Lane and slowed down in front of their small group. The silent spinning lights added a surreal touch to the hot afternoon. The doors of the cars opened, and 4 uniformed officers got out. 2 stayed by the cars while the other 2, a tall, imposing veteran and a younger officer with a dossier, approached them. Grant's whole family, including Chloe, instantly fell silent. Only Chloe's sobs could be heard. The veteran officer scanned the group with a piercing gaze, stopping at Grant and then at Chloe. He compared their faces with a photo in the dossier held by his partner. "Good afternoon," the veteran officer said, his voice deep and firm. "Are you Grant Sterling and Chloe Davies?" Grant swallowed hard, his tongue feeling stuck to the roof of his mouth.
Yes.
"Yes, I am. I am Grant Sterling. What is going on?" "Yes," Chloe said, tightly grasping Grant's arm. Her body trembled violently. "Honey, why are the police here?" she whispered, terrified. The officer ignored Chloe's question and continued. "We are the police. We have received a complaint and strong initial evidence of company fund embezzlement and fraud." Grant's heart seemed to drop into his stomach. Embezzlement? Embezzlement, officer? Grant tried to laugh, but the sound that escaped was broken and strange. "You have the wrong person. This has to be a misunderstanding. I am the director of my company. It's impossible for me to have embezzled funds." "The charges are specific," the younger officer said, opening the dossier. She began to remove the contents one by one. First, the stack of documents on top. The deed to the property. She opened it. Owner, Era Vance, a single name. She was thankful for her father's wisdom. Daughter, never intertwine significant assets with blind love. Second, the car documentation. The luxury sedan she used daily was in Lara's name. The family SUV, which her mother-in-law often used for visits, was also in Lara's name, and the documentation for Grant's sports car. Lara smiled slightly. Grant was so proud of that car, flaunting it to all his friends as if he had earned it through his own efforts, but Lara was smarter. The car had been purchased in the name of Lara's company as a company vehicle, with Grant granted the privilege of using it. The documentation was safely in Lara's hands. Third, the deeds to 2 commercial properties in a newly developed business district, both purely Lara's investments, both registered solely in her name. Fourth, a folder containing reports on her stock and fund portfolio. All securities accounts were personal, open long before she had met Grant, and their value had since multiplied exponentially. She quickly calculated the numbers in her head. Grant's salary was by no means insignificant, but it paled in comparison to her income. Grant's salary went towards his lavish lifestyle, his golfing hobby, modifications to a sports car that wasn't even his, treating his friends, not to mention the monthly allowance she gave to his mother and in-laws. Lara estimated that 80% to 90% of their total wealth was a direct result of her efforts and foresight. Legally, almost everything was in her name. Grant was too lazy and arrogant to concern himself with the tedious administrative details. He only wanted to use, enjoy, and flaunt. As Lara prepared to close the safe, A new blue folder in the back caught her eye. It wasn't one of hers. She had never placed it there. Reaching in, she pulled out the folder. It had no label on the front. Grant was in a terrible mood. The honeymoon plan, the 3-day trip to Cabo with Chloe, which he had deceitfully told Era was a business trip to Seattle, had turned into a complete disaster on the final day. The corporate card was rejected when he tried to pay the hotel bill. His personal credit card, which Era always paid, was also declined. He had barely managed to pay with the cash he had left in his wallet and all of Chloe's savings. They were forced to take a taxi from the airport. It was incredibly humiliating, and his wife was acting very strangely. She had sent him a vague message about a surprise, then her number became unavailable. Mrs. Sterling's and his family's numbers were also blocked. Grant snorted. At most, it was a fleeting moment of anger. It would pass when he got home. He had already prepared himself to face Era's anger. He planned to say, "I had no other choice. Chloe is pregnant. You have to understand." He walked to the gate and took the remote control out of his pocket. He pressed the button.
Click.
Nothing happened. The gate remained firmly shut. He pressed it again several times. Still no response. "The remote is broken," Grant cursed, kicking the iron fence. "Security, open the gate." Chloe shouted, seeking shelter from the heat under the shade of a small tree and fanning her face. "Honey, why is it taking so long? I don't want to wait out here. People are looking at us." How embarrassing. Grant headed to the security booth, but he was surprised. The man on duty was not Mr. Lopez, whom he usually gave orders to. This was a new man, sturdily built and with an expressionless face. "Open the gate." "The remote is broken," Grant ordered with an arrogant tone. The guard stood up. "Excuse me, sir. Who are you looking for?" Grant stared at him incredulously. "Who am I looking for? This is my house. Are you the new guard? Open the gate." "Excuse me, sir," the guard repeated, his voice firm. "This house is owned by Mr. Harrison. You are accused of embezzling $515,000 from Vance Associates Design Build through a shell company called Sun & Design Consulting LLC, double billing travel expenses, and abusing the corporate card for personal gain." Grant went pale. The amount was exact. The company name was mentioned. "This is not a threat. It's slander, people," Grant shouted, his voice now sharp with panic. "It must be a false report. It's my wife's doing. She's trying to set me up." "Can you explain all that at the station?" the veteran officer said curtly. "Now, both of you must accompany us for further investigation." "No, I don't want to," Chloe shouted. "I'm pregnant, officer. I didn't know anything. I just signed what Grant told me. He handled everything. I'm a victim." "Chloe, shut up," Grant snapped. Just then, another black luxury sedan, an unfamiliar car, pulled up silently behind the police cars. The back door opened and Era got out. She looked transformed. There was no expression of sadness, anger, or panic on her face. She was calm, cold, and very dignified. She wore a beige silk blouse, dress pants, and a matching scarf. Large black sunglasses concealed her eyes, lending her an air of inaccessibility. She was not alone. Behind her stepped her lawyer, Mr. Reynolds, carrying a small briefcase. Grant stared at Era with wide eyes. "Era, you reported me," he shouted. "How could you? Are you going to send your husband to jail?" Era slowly approached them, stopping in front of the officers, and removed her sunglasses, revealing clear but icy eyes. She looked directly at Grant. "Husband," she said, her voice clear and audible to everyone. "Which husband? The husband who held a secret wedding with his mistress? The husband who paid for that illegal wedding with stolen money? Or the husband who planned to murder his wife for a $10 million insurance policy?" Each word was a blow. Grant froze. "Mrs." She opened it, and her heart skipped a beat. It was a life insurance policy for a staggering $10 million. The policy issue date, 3 months ago, around the time Chloe had likely confirmed her pregnancy, Lara realized. Then, she read the most critical detail, the beneficiary's name. Her heart stopped for a moment as she saw the name written there, Chloe Davies, with the description, future spouse below. Laura gasped for air. The blood in her veins seemed to freeze solid. This was no longer a simple affair, a secret wedding, or even about the money. It was a murder plot. They didn't just want her fortune. They wanted her gone. If Laura died, the $10 million would be paid to Chloe, the future spouse. The secret wedding was only the beginning. Chloe's pregnancy was the catalyst. Her mother-in-law's words, "You can't even have children," suddenly took on a much more sinister meaning. Perhaps not just an insult, but a justification for why she deserved to be eliminated. Laura sank to the cold floor of the study. The pain of betrayal had now transformed into real fear, which, in turn, mutated into icy fury. They wanted her dead. The man she loved, Grant, the man who shared her bed, was plotting her death with his mistress. She wouldn't give them the chance. With violently trembling hands, she tucked the insurance policy into her purse. It was evidence. She rose to her feet and pulled a small duffel bag from the closet. The handover was completed yesterday. You are not on the visitor list. Grant's blood ran cold. Mr. Harrison? Who is Mr. Harrison? This is my house. Grant Sterling and Era Vance's house. Don't mess with me. I'm just following orders, sir. This house was sold by the previous owner, Mrs. Vance. The owner is now Mr. Harrison. Please leave before I have to call the police. Sold. Grant's voice cracked with disbelief. Impossible. That's a lie. Era wouldn't sell this house without my permission. Honey. Hearing that, Chloe immediately ran to him, dropping her suitcase. What do you mean it's sold? Honey, this is our house, right? You said it was your house. Grant panicked, hitting the fence with his hands. Era Vance, come out. Don't joke. Era, come out. The main door of the imposing house opened, but it wasn't Era who emerged. A neat-looking man, probably a personal assistant, approached the door. He looked at Grant and Chloe with cold eyes. What is this commotion? He asked. And who are you? Where is my wife? Era. Grant shouted. I am the assistant to Mr. Harrison, the new owner of this house, the man replied. Mrs. Vance handed over the keys yesterday. The house is empty. Sterling, who had just regained consciousness and was sitting on the curb, gasped when she heard about the $10 million insurance policy. Era was no longer looking at Grant. She addressed the veteran officer. Good afternoon, Inspector. I am Vance. I am the 90% shareholder of Vance Associates, Design Build. I am the complainant. Mr. Reynolds stepped forward and handed the briefcase to the officer. Inspector, inside here is all the complete evidence. Proof of transfers to the Sun & Design Consulting LLC account, the company registration in Chloe Davies' name, the fake invoices signed by Mr. Sterling, evidence of double billing trips, and copies of corporate card statements that include personal purchases. We have audited everything. The officer took the briefcase and opened it briefly. He saw the stacks of meticulously organized documents and nodded. This is more than enough. Take them away. No. Grant struggled, realizing it was the end. Era, don't do this. I made a mistake.
Give me a chance.
Don't send me to jail. A chance. Era laughed, a humorless sound.